Hello everyone. We have made the trek up back north to Cobb County. We're here in sunny Marietta, and we are at, let's see if I can zoom in, Grace Point Church, and there's the current church building. And here's Krista.
Hi. So Grace Point Church in 1913, we get a little bit closer,
Yep.
was actually Second Baptist Church here in Marietta. So we're the road right here is Atlanta Road, and literally down in that kind of cluster of trees just beyond them is the cemetery. So
Which cemetery
it's the
specifically?
Marietta City Cemetery, which is where Mary Phagan is buried.
Mhm.
That'll be our next stop. But so this is where after Mary's body was at the corner in Atlanta, and she was brought back up by the train to Marietta, the service was held here. And another reason why it was held here at Second Baptist was because her grandfather had land not too far down Atlanta Road. I don't know the exact location though, so that's why we're not at that spot. So on Monday, April 28th, 1913, I wanted to read this article from her, kind of quoting her grandfather, William Phagan. So, standing with bared head in the doorway of his Marietta home, with tears falling unheeded down his furrowed cheeks, W.J. Phagan cried to heaven for vengeance for the murder of his granddaughter. It says here 14-year-old Mary Phagan, but she was actually 13, and vowed that he would not rest until the murderer had been brought to justice. In a silence unbroken, save by the sound of his own sobs and the noise of gently falling rain, the old man lifted his quavering voice in a passionate plea for the life of the wretched who had lured the little girl into the darkness of a deserted building and strangled her to death. It was an infinite grief, the grief of an old man and a broken man, that Mr. Phagan expressed when, his hands outspread imploringly, he invoked divine aid in bringing the murderer of the child to justice. Quote, "By the power of the living God," prayed the old man, his voice rising high and clear above the patter of the rain and the roaring of the passing train, "I hope the murderer will be dealt with as he dealt with that innocent child. I hope his heart is torn with remorse in the measure that his victim suffered pain and shame, that he suffers as we who love the child are suffering. No punishment is too great for the brute who foully murdered the sweetest and purest thing on earth, a young girl. Hanging cannot atone for the crime he has committed and suffering he has caused." So maybe he knew something that 2 years before, or maybe those words were something that stuck with people 2 years later.
Well, or maybe hangings were just so common.
Who knows?
That's just what they did.
Things.
Yes.
So on Wednesday, April 30th, 1913, everybody comes here to this church, and the Reverend T.T.G. Linkus, who was actually the pastor of the church that Fanny Phagan and the children went to in East Point, came up and did the funeral service here. So the sad funeral party arrived in Marietta with the casket shortly before 10 o'clock. There was a great crowd at the station to meet them, with solemn mien, and hundreds of men and women, girls and boys, followed the train of carriages to the Second Baptist Church. So they're coming from the area right by where we are at the Kennesaw House and the Welcome Center, making their way back down from the square to here, this whole funeral procession. And as they're coming down, they're passing what would be the location that Mary is buried at now. So at the churchyard, they even they select the pallbearers and the little white casket on their shoulders. They walked into the tiny country church. Then the crowd poured in. Within 5 minutes, every pew had been taken and every available inch of standing room was occupied, and hundreds who could not get in were standing on their tiptoes on the steps trying to catch the word of services. With voices that cracked because of choked back tears, yet were sacred because of their feeling behind them, the choir sang Rock of Ages, and a dozen times during every stanza they were interrupted by the wailings of the bereaved mother. So when we were talking about this and reading all the articles, it really is a story that the grief hits not just the mother and all the family, but the entire town. I mean, Marietta, for sure had grief stricken, and everybody came here. We show you guys one of the articles from her picture. This is what the church looked like back then. So obviously it's different. This is Fanny. This is Ollie Mae, Mary's sister, and then this is Mary's stepfather, John Coleman. And you can see all the people outside of the church. And
right
then,
on the hill, right where we are.
Yeah, right on the hill. And then I don't think we actually ever got to it, so why not now?
Okay.
This is little Mary Phagan, obviously as a young child, and her sister Ollie Mae. And then when we go over to the grave site, you'll see another picture on a marker there. And then this is the back side of a postcard written by Mary to her cousin Myrtle Barmore, which Myrtle's mother was Fanny's sister, so that's how they're related. But if you look at this, it's Atlanta, Woodward Station, April, it looks like 28th, but at the top it's written 4/23/13. So this is one of the last postcards.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
What does it say? Anything?
It says, "Hello Myrtle, how are you all?" I can't read that word. Hope Granny went to Uncle Jack's Sunday. She's getting along fine. Will you be sure and come to Uncle Jack it looks like the 4th of May, and soon, Mary. So a meeting that never occurred.
No. And that's something we do have in our collection, right?
This is a digital file. We don't actually have the original.
Oh, we
but
scanned
have the
it.
right. Yes.
Okay, that's right.
So
the owner let us scan it to keep it for our files, right?
We're allowed to use it for things just like this.
Yeah. Okay.
So what ends up happening is the whole sermon ends, and it's really just this moment in Marietta that everybody then follows down the road to the grave site, which we will do the exact same thing in just a minute, and we will head over to finally going to the grave site, because I've done 2 videos out at the city cemetery and we haven't gone over there, but we will actually go over there now and explain to you guys a little bit about her grave site and some of the inaccuracies that are out there at that site.
I keep coming over here to this house because I feel like it was probably here. It's not in that picture, is it?
I didn't see it.
Didn't look.
But it could potentially, I don't see it, but it could potentially have been a house for the pastor to live in. It's so close to the church.
I wonder about that. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
And see if there's anything there. So yeah, so new church building, but same hill, same site. And
when it was still Second Baptist in 1947, it became Crestview Baptist Church, and then recently it became Grace Point when Crestview and Rose Lane Baptist churches merged. So that's
yeah.
So
and according to Jan Galtz, it started and it was called Second Baptist because it was a break off of First Baptist in Marietta. So you know it's appropriate for the name. This wind.
Yeah, I know. It's always windy.
It's windy. All right, so we're gonna head to the next stop, and we'll see you soon.